Yes. I have permission. Hey!
Hi.
There's Danny Silva. Grant and I put on our ball caps and our sunglasses in honor of you.
Yes.
It's
There you
our
go.
homage.
That's awesome.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. We have Desta here as well. She's going to be our producer. She's running
All
this
right.
show.
Danny.
she'll
All right.
cut you off if you get out of hand.
This is awesome.
Okay.
I'm going to take mine off now. I'll get
Okay.
hot. That was just for you.
That was greatness. I loved it. I'm honored.
Okay, I think I am recording. Danny, do you want permission to record?
No, I don't need to record.
Okay, then let's get started.
Okay,
This
you guys give me a 5-second countdown here so I can start.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. Thank you for tuning in with us today. I'm Nicole Sackage, and I'm here with Grant Cameron. And our guest today is Danny Silva. And this is going to be our third and final installment of a little show we're calling Gossip and Rumors. We're also joined by Grant's assistant, Desta Barnaby. She's in the background running this show for us. So thank you, Desta, and thank you everybody for being here today.
Good.
I think maybe just to give a quick update to our previous part 1 and part 2, I would like to say that Bob McGuire and Tim McMillan have talked it out. They've shaken hands, virtual hands, and they're on the same page now. They're still fine. They're still friends. They still have respect for each other, but the Twitterverse is still going a little crazy with this. So Danny, you're kind of more into the Twitterverse than we are. And I would just like maybe your opinion to start us off with on what you think about Twitter as a resource in the community. And if you think information really gets expressed clearly, or if you think it's just maybe a battleground.
It's probably all of the above. Sometimes it's really helpful. Sometimes it's horrible and it's just trolling. You know, we can share information immediately, and that's really cool because a lot of generations before us didn't have this advantage of social media or even the computer type stuff. Sometimes it's really garbled and you don't know what to expect, but it's also just a tool that we try to use. But in a lot of ways, it's made my career the social media thing, and a lot of us from the newer guys that are dipping into the UFO stuff or the bloggers or whatever you want to call it, social media is how we talk to each other and how we communicate and build our followings and share our blogs and share our information. So it's a great tool, and it's also super crazy and super horrible when it becomes a battleground, but also I guess it's a way to kind of vet information because everyone's tearing each other apart. And if you post something that's super crazy, there'll probably be a million people talking bad about you and tweeting at you and all kinds of things. And, you know, I want to smack the heck out of some people that are on social media and I can't. And that just comes with the territory that you can't meet everybody in person, and you can, other people can say whatever they want. And it's all kinds of crazy stuff. So it is a battleground too, but it's great. So it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now I know Twitter kind of limits how much you can say in one tweet. Do you think maybe that's a factor in why maybe information isn't expressed as clearly as it could be? Because it's pretty much, you know, shorthand or multiple tweets that have to say something and maybe people don't follow the thread entirely?
Maybe a little bit, but it's also, you know, the attention span of everyone is really, really short. I have a really short attention span. That's why a lot of my blogs are pretty short. I try to just kind of like slap people with information and I keep it moving. I'm not trying to be super wordy or anything like that. So it is just the attention span of this generation, I think, too. And I think less and less people are reading long form articles or books and stuff like that, and we just want it quick. And but I think it does play a factor that it's so short like that. But you can do multiple tweets, like you said, and if people aren't clicking on the multiple tweets, that's their fault. But and then we see not even just in the UFO community, it's like huge politicians are using it, obviously Trump, but even just other world leaders, and it's just a huge platform. So it's kind of it's 2020, and this is how it's going.
Right.
But Danny, can I ask you about your blog? Can you sort of give your background on how you got, because you haven't been around that long, and can you express for me, because I sort of pointed out the fact that I noticed you guys were doing some stuff that the older generation was not able to do, that you sort of know the platforms and the how to work the computer thing. Can you talk about the platforms that are used by the young people, and talk about how you came into it and what your blog is all about?
I think the platforms that are used are mainly anything we can get our hands on. There is the main ones, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There's Snapchat. Now there's TikTok, which is really huge. And just anything that becomes popular is a tool to use. How I got started was I was just flipping channels on the radio like 20 years ago. And all of a sudden I heard Art Bell's voice, and he was talking about UFOs, and I was like, what? And this was like on the old clock radio or something. And ever since then, I've just been listening to Coast a lot, listening to Art Bell, George Norrie, George Knapp. And then I was just a pedestrian, just on the sidelines doing normal things. And then all of a sudden the ATIP story broke. And there was a lot of us that New York Times story changed everything for us. We didn't know that the government for sure had a program. We thought they did. Everyone thought they did. But then it was right there in black and white, and there was videos attached to it. And there was some guy named Lou Elizondo coming out and talking about it. So that kind of just changed my whole life. I feel like it was like meant to be type stuff, and it just changed everything. And ever since then, I've been totally obsessed. And I couldn't get enough of Grant Cameron interviews or anything like that, Grant Cameron stuff. And I couldn't get enough listening to George Knapp and listening to all the TTSA guys. And I just wanted all the information. Early on, all it was social media, Twitter, really, because TTSA was new, and following them, there really wasn't any outlets to do that. So it was a few of us just tweeting, and we were tweeting like 1 million times a day, trying to find out as much information as possible. It was like the gold rush. And all of a sudden, some of my friends wanted to start a blog, and I didn't know anything about blogging. I didn't know anything about writing. I probably still don't. And they started bugging me like every day, like, you need to write, because we're finding out really cool stuff, and we're tweeting about like stories that no one really knows about just from getting on Google and really digging into this stuff. And so we started a blog thanks to them, and that blog kind of dissolved, and I started my own, and I never looked back. And I've just been super obsessed, and people like you, Grant, and other people have been reading it. And I'm super honored for that. And I've been able to talk to some people and make some friends. And I came from a music industry background where you really have to like kill yourself in order to talk to some of these rock stars, because they just have so many fans trying to talk to them. So I was able to use that networking ability in the UFO community. And I realized in the UFO community, it's way easier to talk to these high level people than it is to talk to people in the music industry. So I was able to use some of those skills and kind of translate it into what I'm doing now.
Wonderful. You brought up ATIP, and that was kind of bringing me back to, I think, our part 1 and part 2, where we were bringing up these rumors that people have been whispering about. And I'm sure you probably got asked the same way Grant and I did. It's just asked our opinion, what do you think everybody's talking about? What is this big drop that's imminent? And over the last few days, I believe, we did comment that one of these rumors kind of got started by James Fox. He mentioned he had information that was coming out, and he has since commented that no, his information and what he was mentioning has nothing to do with these triangle stories that are coming out. And I was wondering maybe if you thought, or if you had heard whispers and rumors or gossip, that this was maybe another continuation of some information from ATIP, or have you heard anything along those lines?
I can just look at what's public. Today, or I think it was maybe yesterday, there's a new article with some Elizondo interview excerpts, and you can just see what he said publicly. So I'm just kind of putting two and two together that maybe what he's talking about could be in this drop, because Elizondo in the interview is talking about finding out in short order. I think he used the term in short order about who ATIP was briefing and some of these senior DoD officials. So it sounds like ATIP was briefing some really important people, and maybe the public is going to find that out. So that could be associated with this drop. The other thing he said in that interview was he said yet, and then he kind of emphasized the word yet, that maybe some of these other UFO encounters may be coming out, documents about them, or who knows what it is. So I'm just going off of public comments, and I thought that was really eye-opening that he said that. I would love to know who else ATIP was briefing. We heard the story that they were having trouble getting to Mattis, but maybe they were briefing tons and tons of people, other people like that. So I think there's a lot more of the ATIP story, and probably what Elizondo was doing when he was there. It's debated highly about the scope of the program. How big was it? Was it small? Was it tiny? A lot of people, even with government backgrounds, debate that, and it kind of stinks because us as like writers or whatever you want to call us, we don't know which way to go. Other than I do trust Elizondo and what he says, but there's other takes to the story. But I think maybe what comes out could be talking about that, according to Elizondo's comments today. So I thought those were pretty eye-opening.
Wow. Yeah. I'll have to look into those comments. I haven't really got online today at all. We've been busy planning our triangle panel, which is becoming quite explosive now. So that's exciting for us. But Grant, did you have a question that you wanted to ask Danny about TTSA?
Yeah, well, let's take one off of the TTSA. You had an encounter a week back or whatever on a radio talk show. So get into the whole deal of your opinion on TTSA. That for people that are watching, a lot of people know there's sort of a controversy. Where do you stand on what they've done and the controversy about who they are and what they're doing?
I think we have to kind of take what we can get in the UFO community, and we can always question things. It's fine. I know a lot of people don't trust, to the Stars Academy because they have government backgrounds, or they don't trust Elizondo because he has a government background. I think it's okay to question things, and if you don't want to trust someone, don't trust them. I think we can just look at what they've brought forward alone and how valuable it is without trusting anybody. I have trust personally, but that doesn't matter. They brought forward the videos. They changed the world by bringing out the ATIP program, and they got other people on board. They got, I look around my circle, my family members, my friends, and things like that. And pre-2017, it was really hard to talk to people about this stuff. Now we have Marco Rubio and Mark Warner and other politicians commenting on it at heightened levels, more so than ever. And now it's like I can talk to people and I can say, look, there is no debate really that there's UFOs, quote unquote, flying around in the skies, dealing with military, messing with military. And that's almost like that's like a fact now. It's not debatable. I mean, you can debate who is controlling them, whether it's aliens or Russia or whatever you want to do. That's fine. But now it's like not even debatable that there's UFOs. It's like a proven fact now, basically. And it's just easier to talk to people. And I've talked to people that used to hate the subject, and now they believe it, and they're reading my blog and they're reading the New York Times stuff. And a lot of this is thanks to the Stars Academy, and really thanks to Elizondo and Mellon. I think specifically those two guys, they've really done a lot on the government side. Plus, we have the UAP task force now, and I know there's a lot of questions. Is it going to be Project Blue Book? We can hold judgment on that, reserve judgment. That's fine. But the thing is, there is a task force. It's currently going on, and it's not a conspiracy. And that's something we can take to the public. So we're just looking for ammo to basically take to the public and get them convinced as activists. A lot of us, that's our goal, is getting the public to believe what we already believe. The goal has never been the UFO community. Elizondo always says that. And I see how it's true, because the UFO community, we already know what's going on in a lot of ways. And we want normal people, the public, to believe this stuff so we don't get chastised and that's the way we're going to change the world, is getting the public on board. And that's what To the Stars has done. Another goal I think that they've had behind the scenes is they didn't want people to get scared. You know, there's always been allegedly this government issue that they think the public is going to get scared, and maybe that's why they're not telling us everything. But you know, that hasn't happened at all. And in fact, people, in a lot of ways, people haven't even cared, and they're still watching football and hockey and all this other stuff, and they don't even care about this stuff. So no one's really gotten scared, and all the goals have been met. And I think it's all culminated with the UAP task force, but we're going to see how that goes. But just what we could just look at in general is great, and that's it's changed everything. So go ahead and don't trust them when they screw up, and then you can hold their feet to the fire, and they've made some little mistakes. But when they do something really, really horrible, then we can reevaluate it and say, hey, these guys are snakes. But until then, they've only done good as far as I'm concerned. I know a lot of people are upset about the threat angle, and I understand that, but that's more of a kind of a personal thing, and maybe you know, they do it from a military aspect. But other than that, I don't see why anyone could really be upset with what they've done so far.
You mentioned the Senate. Can you get a little bit into, for people that may not know, where they're, because you and I and Nicole and everybody's been talking about this, the rumors of what's happened at the Senate, this report that may be coming out. Can you sort of get into what you know and what you speculate might be happening?
Yeah, To the Stars Academy, specifically Elizondo and Mellon, they've set up these briefings. Not only them, but the UAPTF guys, which are the old ATIP guys. So it's not just To the Stars Academy, it's these old ATIP guys. You know, Elizondo left, but everyone else that was at ATIP kept going. And now it's evolved into the UAP task force. So they're doing tons of work behind the scenes. They're bringing in people like Fravor, Eric Davis, which we found out about in the New York Times. I mean, this is a huge New York Times article where he's mentioning crash retrievals or whatever he's saying. So they're doing all these briefings. I think even Melinda was talking about some with you guys this week, I heard about. But so there's all these briefings occurring. The, you know, politicians and bureaucrats and stuff, they're hearing about it more. Mark Warner, you know, was briefed. You know, Trump said he was briefed. Marco Rubio was briefed and was going on the record about it along with Mark Warner. So all these politicians are getting briefed in these different committees, and they're getting the kind of, who knows actually what's in the briefing. Maybe they're seeing extended videos, but at the very least, they know that the UAP, the UFOs, they're flying around military installations, they're bothering our military, and they're flying around nuclear facilities. So this is a huge problem. And just with that, leaving aliens out of it, that's what they're bringing to the politicians and the bureaucrats, and getting them on board with this, and trying to tell them that we need to figure out what's going on at the very least. So now there's the UAP task force. It was kind of always there, but now it's kind of more funded and more above ground, I would say, than even the ATIP program was. It has more clout, basically, you could say. And as soon as this bill gets passed, they're going to have 180 days to come up with a report. A lot of people have questions about the report. There will be a classified annex, so we don't know everything that's going to be in there, but it's just forward movement. It's great forward movement. And the task force is huge, and I don't know why that's not front page news story on every paper that there's a UAP task force currently going on. I mean, how amazing is this? And but the more you know, civilians, I call them UFO civilians, that we get to Google this kind of thing or just look into it, the more people are going to be impressed and know that it's real.
I agree with you there. I want to back up to a comment you made just a few minutes ago. I think you mentioned that Elizondo and others in TTSA really aren't doing this for the UFO community. They're doing it for the general public. And this has come up before, and people mentioned that they believe they're trying to rewrite the UFO history, and they're trying to forget everything like Roswell, or should I just say they're trying to rewrite it from the Nimitz videos on. Do you really get that? Do you think that's what's going on, or do you think this is just the best evidence that's current that the public can really swallow, instead of thinking it's just a regurgitation of the last 50 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that they're trying to do the best they can. Elizondo has commented on Roswell, but we don't know everything he had access to. I would assume he had access to a lot of that old stuff, but we really don't know for sure. Another thing he was mentioning, and I've written about it actually a couple months ago, was he was talking about a precursor to ATIP. And it doesn't sound like he's talking about OSAP. He's talking about other programs. We know there's always been programs going on in the United States government, and but we don't know exactly everything that they've been privy to. We don't know everything that's in these briefings that they're doing. So I don't know if they're talking about Roswell or if they're talking about bodies. I would assume not, but I mean, who really knows? But yeah, I mean, that's a big question. Are they just trying to delete everything out that was there? No, I don't think so. But maybe they just don't want to talk about it. They also have to really hold back, I think, in maybe some of these briefings, and they only can do the best evidence and the stuff that people can sink their teeth into, and they can't get too weird. I assume. I'm not really sure. I'd love to sit in on one of these briefings, but you even talk. You hear Elizondo talking, publicly, and he sometimes they try to stay away from this stuff. I get that feeling with Mellon sometimes too. They want to move this thing forward, and the best way to do it is to not get too spooky, I guess you would say, too early. And maybe that's also part of not scaring everyone. But they just want to bring evidence forward, and you see people complaining all the time. It's funny. It's like it's always a double-edged thing. You see people complaining all the time when people say stuff they can't prove, but then Elizondo doesn't talk about stuff he can't prove, and he gets flack for it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the both. It's always the double-edged sword, and it's always like naysayers. And for years and decades, people have been saying government people come out and tell us what you know. Elizondo does it, and then they say, "Screw you, you're from the government." So I don't know. They can't have it both ways every time, and I think we should just be thankful for what we got. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't trust them. That's fine. But look at what they're bringing forward, and it's amazing stuff. I've said this on your guys' panels a few times. That also I think there's various goals of UAPTF, and they're investigating these things. They're trying to figure them out and get the military basically a better idea of what's going on. I also personally believe that they're more above ground. They're the ones talking to politicians and talking to bureaucrats. So I think also they are kind of trying to get some of these special access programs, whatever you want to call them. There's lots of different acronyms for these programs. They're trying to get them to share their information because it's illegal, or I don't know if it's illegal. Some people debate if it's illegal. It seems immoral. It seems wrong that some of these programs aren't sharing. That's another thing that Elizondo brought up today in the interview, although he said he couldn't find any evidence of other programs. I personally believe they're there. I mean, a lot of people seem to believe they're there. And we need to get these programs to be sharing stuff, and especially in the hands of UAPTF. Let's say that the task force knows of another program. I can't prove that they do. Let's say they do. Let's just for argument's sake, they know of another program. Just because you know of another program doesn't mean you can go take anything from that program and show it to politicians and bureaucrats. So I think that's the goal, is that they want to get some of this information from these other programs and be able to share it with Marco Rubio and Mark Warner and really convince some of these people. And who knows about the Biden-Harris administration, what's going to go forward. I think that's real exciting too. Anytime there's change, Republican or Democrat, we can have hope that something big might happen. So, I think they want to share it with these people. And it's like, it really doesn't seem like a lot of these politicians and bureaucrats, whether they legally have access to this stuff, regardless, it seems like they don't. They're not getting it. Even if they deserve it and they legally should have it, it seems like they're not getting it. The briefings that they're supposed to be getting from these real secret programs. So I think that's part of this whole thing too with the task force. I think ATIP probably ran into a lot of those problems also. So I think that's a big goal of the task force, and I think it's a big goal of what we're seeing going on today. And it's maybe even part of the reason that Elizondo left. He was frustrated, and it just seems like everything he's done has worked. And I'm sure everybody that was in ATIP, they're still doing really, really, really amazing things with the task force and all this stuff. So it's going on from a lot of different angles, and a lot of people are working on this stuff, and we're just not hearing about it.
Right. Now with Rubio and Warner's inquest coming up and the information that they're gathering, there is talk that they think they will get a lot of information from various groups like the FBI and other government entities to come together. But the general outcry is that whatever we, the public, get is going to be so sanitized and still kept under lock and key. Are you along those lines of thinking, or do you think we're going to get some actual hard information? Or, yeah, what do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I would think that why would they put it in there if we're not going to get anything? But I'm just kind of waiting to see. And I think it's almost equally important. I want the public to have everything and I want to see it for myself. But it's also very important for some of these politicians that are getting the funding and getting that this stuff to see these things too. So I can see both sides of it. I'm not sure what's going to happen. We may end up getting burned, but I know that there's a lot of good people in the task force, and they were in ATIP, and there's other people doing things. So at the same time, I think I have faith in them that maybe something great will come of it. But I don't know. It may be extremely sanitized. Maybe what we get, it'll be sanitized and it'll still be really cool. I'm sure that they're not just going to dump everything on the public right away, and that's why they put that classified annex wording in there. But I'm kind of just having to wait to see. And this is all positive movement, so I'm just happy that it's happening regardless. But we're going to have to wait and see, and maybe nothing will happen. Maybe something horrible will happen, and there isn't even this report, and nothing comes of it. But we can at least be happy that there's a task force going on. It's like, imagine if ATIP, when it was going on, was announced. That was always kind of my dream, because I felt like when the New York Times story came out, it was being misreported that ATIP had already ended in 2012. We knew it was still going on because of Elizondo's words, but I was always thinking, what if the public knew there was a current program going on? What would that do for like just promotion of the subject? And it's happened now, and it hasn't been promoted as much as I would like at all. I would really like someone from the task force to come out like a face, and to have like a public speaker or a press officer or something. That would be really, really cool, and I think that would be
So
great.
like a Hynek equivalent, because Blue Book was public, and so I mean, Dr. Hynek was kind of like the public spokesperson for Blue Book for a long time. So you think we maybe need some transparency like that?
I would love it. I mean, I don't know that it's going to happen. It may take 5 or 10 years, or it may never happen, but I would love it. I'm just thinking from a promo aspect of getting the public on board and more interested. I think it would be great if we had some kind of a Fox Mulder guy up at the podium answering questions for the press. That would be so cool. That's probably a pipe dream, but it probably isn't going to happen, but it would be really cool.
Who would you want that to be? First person that pops in your head?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe, maybe Mellon or Elizondo could, I wrote a blog a while back too about maybe they're going to go back to government. Maybe they'll run for Senate or something like that. Maybe they'll take bureaucratic positions. So it would be cool if they just like went back to government, got hired back, and then they were the spokespeople, because they're already, so well spoken when they talk. Like, I mean, hearing Mellon and Elizondo speak, it's like amazing. It's like hearing like some classic president talking, but he's talking about UFO stuff. It's great. I would love to see one of them, or even someone we've never heard of, just answering questions for the public. What if it wasn't Susan Go or Goff, or however you pronounce her name, the villain of the UFO community in many ways? What if it was someone, and they're not only doing press releases written, but they're actually doing speaking engagements and things like that? I'm just dreaming here, but it would definitely be really cool. And I think it would go a long way as far as just, they could use all these clips on Ancient Aliens and the news and everything else. They could have some person they could focus on other than Elizondo or whoever that's actually speaking for the government. Every time Lou has spoken, he's speaking as a previous employee, and he's not speaking as a current employee. So it would just be really cool to happen. But again, I mean, it probably won't, but I'd love it.
I agree.
Let me ask a question. You mentioned the administration, and we really probably not going to know for a while what they're going to do. But let's go back to the old administration. There's an article that just came out where we already knew that Trump had fired the Secretary of Defense, and then he fired a bunch of people on the Defense Science Board, Kissinger, a bunch of high-level people, and seems to be just canning everybody. So my question to you, and when Trump came in, everybody figured this is this crazy guy. He's not scared of anybody. Why did he not drop, in your opinion, the UFO secret if he had, or did he not have it?
I have no idea. I listened to you about a lot of this stuff, Grant. I've been listening to you for so many years about it. I feel it's weird that you're even asking me. I should be asking you this, but I'm not sure, man. I don't know. I go back and forth on what the presidents know. I mean, just looking at ATIP, I mean, Obama was there for it. We could even go before that, and maybe Bush Jr. and all this kind of stuff. And, what did Obama know? Like, did Obama, because the ATIP story broke right after Trump was elected, right? So I mean, did Obama put that in motion and then it happened, or was it because of Trump, or did it have nothing to do with the presidents? I'm just speculating my butt off over here. I have no idea, basically, and I don't know what they know. I think it's really cool that Trump said he was briefed on some of the stuff. He said he didn't necessarily believe it, but he believes the pilots, whatever that means. But so I thought that was really cool. But I don't know what they know, and I really stopped short of even trying to understand it because I don't know. But I wonder about that, greatly, and I would love it. But I'm hopeful about the new Biden-Harris administration. Maybe nothing will change that. But we had some great developments under Trump. I mean, I don't know if it was because of him, but it's been a great 4 years under him as far as UFO news. It's been like the biggest 4 years ever. So did it have anything to do with him? I don't know. It mostly had to do with ATIP and Elizondo and these guys, but we've had great forward movement, and I just don't want it to stop. And I don't think it's going to. I don't think they would have released and confirmed the UAP task force, if they were trying to cover this up as much. And Grant, I always go back to a lot of the great things that you've said over the years. They always stick in my head. And you always say, why would they even talk about it if they want to cover it up? They just wouldn't say anything at all. And I always think about that. I agree with you. Now, I talk to other reporters, and they're saying, well, they're dropping UFO stuff because they're covering up United States technology, and they want us to think it's UFOs. I doubt it. Maybe in some cases, but I doubt it. We're investigating our own nuclear plants and nuclear facilities, and we're scaring the heck out of everyone? It just doesn't make any sense. But so I go back to your quote a lot, Grant. And why are they even talking about this when Canada isn't saying anything and no one's talking about it? So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Going to your statement about what does Obama know, just for the record, I've been pushing on Nicole. She's in Illinois, and Obama's files are about to be released. And I've sort of trained Nicole what we're going to do, and we're going to go after the files of all these people in the former administration. And for the record, Obama did make one statement about when he had the speech at Roswell, where he said, "We'll keep our secrets here." When he made the speech where he didn't have to say that, he came out and he talked about it. And so you have that. And the other thing is with the new administration, I know that in 2007 there was a Democratic debate in Philadelphia, and Biden was actually asked after the interview by MSNBC, and he just said, "Oh, come on, are you serious? Like, you're asking me about UFOs?" Mm-hmm. He seemed pretty skeptical. But can you talk a little bit about Harris being on the committee that was briefed?
Yeah, supposedly she was. I guess I'm just listening to you guys. I'm listening to Melinda and everyone else, and Melinda said she was able to confirm it, but then didn't she say that like some event couldn't confirm it for her or something like that? So that's really all I know, and we can just kind of speculate. She was on some of these committees. I don't know. I'm not an expert on a lot of this political stuff. Dean Johnson is really following it well on social media, but I don't know if the whole committee has to be there, if they're necessarily when they're briefed, or if just some members. I'm not sure how it works. I have a lot of questions. I mean, I'm kind of hopeful that Harris was there for a lot of this stuff. Biden was, the vice president for a long time. So it isn't like they were just civilians coming in like Trump was. They have this ingrained history in government. So you would think they've been hearing about a lot of this stuff. I mean, the other question is, how much do these government officials even care about the UAP subject? They have so much on their plate and so much to deal with. So I don't know, but I'm hopeful that Harris was there and that she knows some things, and that they focus more on this. I hope we have a lot more political stories to go into. And if Elizondo's right, where he's talking about, we find out more people that ATIP briefed, more senior DOD officials, I think that'll be really cool. And that'll be a lot of hints on where to go and where to look. And just understanding exactly more of what was going on with ATIP. And we only can imagine who UAPTF is briefed.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we believe former Senator Harry Reid and what was released with the Nimitz, he said that was only the tip of the iceberg. And, it was minute compared to the rest of the information that they did have or have collected. So I'm very hopeful that more of that will come out in the future. And I've seen the pictures that Grant has posted in several interviews where it's the pictures of the discs. And I mean, I know how much information can be stored on one writable disc. So when you have a book full of multiple discs, to me, that says there's hundreds of hours of footage at least. So I'm very hopeful for more to come out. Grant, did you have any more follow-up questions that you wanted to ask?
I got a couple of small questions. You
Okay.
mentioned music. You were in the music industry, and as you know, I wrote a book on music and aliens and all that kind of stuff. Did you ever run up against musicians who had an interest in UFO phenomena in your music career?
I've heard of a lot of people. There's a huge rapper right now named Kendrick Lamar, and he talks about seeing a UFO. I think he's going to get into it more. So it's always cool when we get these big public celebrities talking about it. It's really cool, and it is interesting. Where I know you talked about a little bit of just like where do these ideas come from? Where does creativity come from? It's really interesting, and sometimes you get music ideas, and is it coming from God or where is it coming from? You don't know, and just any of these creative ideas and anything. So that's always interesting to me. But yeah, there's a lot of, music is really open to it. And part of my goal is, I haven't really succeeded in any way, is because I was coming from hip hop music. I wanted more the hip hop community to be activated in the UFO subject. And a lot of people are really interested in conspiracies. And I feel like they get interested in really these stupid, corny ones that they're getting like this horrible information from YouTube. And if we could just get some of the solid stuff into their hands, it could really affect change. Like even just the Nimitz stuff or any of the solid UFO information, rather than they're talking about the New World Order and all this other crazy stuff. And not saying there's nothing to it, but they just get really, really weird. And I would just love for them to get more solid stuff and really be activists. And that would be really cool if we could get the younger generations on. And everyone wants this information out. It's like the younger you are, the more open you are to this stuff. And I think we're chipping away at that. But I would love for that to happen. And I'm hopeful. A few people are making documentaries now, and I think it's going to include some big musicians and things like that. So I'm hoping that that's going to change things.
Great. I was going to
No,
say,
sorry.
maybe we'll have to collaborate with you, Danny, and use some of your resources, because I know you just mentioned Kendrick Lamar. I've been talking about Post Malone, who kind of came out on the Joe Rogan Experience.
That's
and
right.
I know
Yeah.
Britney Spears has been in the headlines lately, along with Demi Lovato, and it just seems like it's a pop star kind of thing right now, or like you mentioned, hip hop background as well. And these stories would be interesting to track down because they are influencers. So it would be nice to see, where their thoughts truly lie, or if it's inspirational in any sort of way. So go ahead.
It's crazy.
Grant.
I'm always thinking about what would happen if like James Mattis came out and talked about it, because he was so famous. But honestly, he isn't as famous as like any of these pop stars in the world, and like they're actually more important than any of these politicians would be in a lot of ways, other than maybe like the president and stuff like that. So they have clout. They have tons and tons of people listening to them, and so anytime they talk, it's a big thing.
And they influence the young people, which I think is important. That the young people are the ones who still have open minds as to changing ideas about what UFOs might be, and if they get involved. And that was one of the things, and that's sort of my last question. I sort of got taken with you guys, a bunch of what I call the young gun guys that had come in, and we always just have a joke in the UFO community. I remember one guy was running a conference, and one woman came up and said, is there a senior discount for admission? He said, if there was a senior discount, everybody get a discount. No, there isn't. And so I was very happy to see you guys. Can you talk a little bit about some of the guys you're working with, and talk a little bit more about your blog, what it's called? And the one young gun I'd like to talk about, maybe he's not a young gun, but I call him UFO Google, who you work with a lot. And the final episode, or the final part of that question is, what do you think the chances of Nicole getting an interview with UFO Google? We're trying to push for him to come public here and talk about what he knows, because this guy is one of the most impressive guys I've ever run across in decades.
Yeah.
Juliano Marinkovic, he's the man. He's a great friend of mine. He is the greatest, just researcher behind the scenes. He helps everyone out. He's totally selfless. He's a shy guy. He doesn't like to do a lot of interviews. He's always kicking me his interviews. People ask him to do interviews, and he's like, no, I'll just have Danny do it. But I don't know. He's like so helpful. And I know he's helping like all the legends behind the scenes. I know you talked to him, Grant. Yeah. And he's just the best. Like anytime you need anything, he's like an archivist. He's got it. I don't know how he finds time to do all this stuff and record anything. Anytime I need anything, I'm just hitting him up. And he needs to do some more interviews. We got to get him out of his shell a little bit, because he's so he's so influential behind the scenes. He's just so amazing. I know he has been on Coast to Coast with George Knapp, and but he's like, he doesn't get enough credit. He's the man. His Twitter is at Omni Talk Radio, Giuliano Marinkovic. He's interviewed Lou Elizondo. He was like one of the first people to interview Elizondo when it was really hard to get to Lou. Now it's pretty easy, and Lou will talk to a lot of people, but back then it was a lot harder. Giuliano's just the greatest, and I've never seen him argue with anyone. He's just a gentleman, and I can't say enough good things about him. He's the man, and yeah, he needs to get more credit, but it's like by choice. He's just behind the scenes and just working quietly, and he doesn't want to be in the spotlight. It's just how he likes it. But you know, I think I tried to interview him once 2 years ago, and he like didn't even want to do an interview with me, and I'm like, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard. There's a lot of other young guns doing things. There's a lot of great people, and I think a lot of this generally is because of the ATIP story. I hate to say it, but a lot of us are really interested in it, and I think even now a lot of the mainstream reporters that are covering the UFO subject, it's because of all this and because of this movement. But yeah, Giuliano was great, and there's a lot of people doing things. James Iandoli is a good friend of mine. There's just a lot of other people that are doing things behind the scenes. You know, everyone has our lives. None of us get paid for this really. And so it's always like a struggle to just live our lives, work our regular jobs, and then still do this. There is a few people that are able to be like full-time journalists is covering this, and my hat's off to them. It must be amazing to do it. But the rest of us have to kind of juggle our lives and everything else. But it's just a really great thing. And I don't know, I'm glad that there is a lot more people, and I'm getting challenged every day. I feel like I'm surrounded by geniuses. I feel really stupid when I talk to some of my friends and some of these other people. They're like really great writers. They're really great researchers, and I'm just some guy writing blogs. But you know, they say if you surround yourself with really smart people, then it kind of elevates you. So that's just how I feel what I'm doing, and it's just great. And I'm even people that are just influencers, like, you know, UFO Jesus Ryan. He does a great job, and he has a huge fan base, and he uses humor. And a lot of people knock him for it, but you know, it works great. And he has a lot of people that follow him on YouTube, and he does a really great job getting information out.
Talk a little bit about your blog, and because your blog sort of took off. You just started a couple of years ago, and you got a lot of attention. You got a lot of people reading your blog. I think you've actually got some higher level people that are sort of interacting with you and stuff like that. So give people where you can read your stuff and the kind of stuff you've done.
It's silvarecord.com, SILVARECORD.com. And I'm just a normal person in a lot of ways. I have some opinions, but a lot of times I'm listening to people smarter than me. I don't have a government background. You know, I'm listening to Elizondo and I'm listening to Mel, and I'm listening to you, Grant, and everyone else. And I'm just trying to report on it. I boil it down. That's my thing, is I boil it down into kind of easier pieces. And even some UFO civilians, they read my stuff and they don't know what's going on. So I only can imagine, and you know, it's harder for them to follow. So I only can imagine when they're reading these really long, intricate articles, they're probably tuning out. I mean, there's a huge learning curve. George Knapp always talks about it with the UFO subject. So I try to boil my stuff down, and even how it is now, it's still not boiled down enough for regular civilians. It is for the UFO community, but that's kind of where I come from. And I just try to break stories quickly and give people the information and kind of move on. And I'm not trying to use poetic language or anything and make it sound real crazy. And a lot of times I'm writing these blogs as like breaking stories. I'll be up, you know, to like 3 a.m. working on it in just one day, and I'm done. You know, I'm not working on it for a year. And other people do that, and they have really great, huge stories, and I'm kind of coming at it from a different angle. But they can always listen to me, and they can DM me, and I'm always looking for stories, and I'm able to answer questions. And that's basically it. silvarecord.com. And I was able to get, just from continuously writing blogs, I was able to get some people to listen to me. And I mean, I was really blessed and honored when you were shouting me out, Grant, early on, and I was just some jerk, and you were talking about my blogs, and it really helped my career, and it got people to take me seriously. So I'm always thankful for that, man.
Just my last question, and then I'll leave it to Nicole. Nicole's little segment here is called Rumors and Gossip. And you don't have to tell us what you're doing, but do you have any big stories you're about to break?
You know, I'm on my toes these days. There's a lot of other people doing really, really great work, and it's really intimidating. And it wasn't like even just a couple years ago when the ATIP story broke and there was only a handful of us. Now there's a lot of people doing things, and there's a lot of great stories, and it's great movement. So let's see, what am I working on? I'm trying to, I told it, I mentioned it on your panel, I think. I'm going to do a blog on Gary Nolan and just kind of some basic tactics he's using and all of science uses to get information out. So I'm going to do that blog. And then
explain who he is. Explain who Gary Nolan is.
Sure. Dr. Gary Nolan, he's a world-renowned scientist. He works on cancer. Now he's doing COVID stuff. But he's also, has talked about some of his experiences, and he works with Jacques Vallée. They're studying materials. They also did work that was published on my blog, written by Twitter user Jay, about the caudate putamen, along with Kit Green. So he's doing all this kind of, I don't want to say paranormal, but it would be in that area where he's doing UFO stuff. And the fact that he's such a huge scientist, an important guy, and he's also doing this lends credibility to it. And let's be honest, that's what brings the most credibility to this stuff. That's why guys like Chris Mellon and Steve Justice and these other guys, when they're talking about UFOs, a lot of us really listen. They're not just in the UFO community. They're really, really successful people. So that's always good. And Gary Nolan has kind of hinted about what they're doing. He's talked about it on Twitter and other places. And I always go back to his strategy on how they do this. And basically they release little things, little facts. And this is how, apparently this is just how a lot of scientists do it anyways. So they release little facts here and there. They get them to publish in like maybe smaller journals. They build their case, and then eventually they're able to take all these pieces that have already been kind of proven and make the larger argument about what's going on. And I think that's what they're going to kind of try to do with some of these ultra materials, metamaterials, or whatever you want to call it. Because let's be honest, if they just put it out, no one's going to believe them. They're going to get flack. But if it's kind of proven in these scientific journals, it'll be harder for people to kind of diss. So yes. I think that's what they're trying to do. And it's a longer process. And I know that there's a lot of debate behind it, publicly and behind the scenes, of how to go about this. Or is it even provable at all? Is it provable to say that humans didn't build some of these materials, or will they never be able to prove it? So it kind of remains to be seen, but that's what they're working on. And I'm going to just try to highlight maybe some of their tactics in a short blog. And I was inspired to do that while I was on the panel a couple weeks ago. So I'm working on that one next.
That's great. And just a quick reference, he was featured in James Fox's film, The Phenomenon, and he is the scientist who took Jacques Vallée's metamaterials and had them tested. So everybody can look that up. It's a great part of the movie. Grant, was there anything you wanted to add? Well, I think we're about to wrap it up here. And Danny, I just wanted to say our friend Peter Robbins pointed out to me a few years ago when I talked to him about being more public with my own personal experiences and just how I could do good in the community. And he pointed out to me that the best of us not only do very good research, but we also become educators along the way. And that is how I feel about you, Danny. I think you are an educator amongst us in this field. So I just wanted to say thank you for your work and keep it up. And I follow you just like you follow Grant. So it's good to have work where we can all bounce ideas off each other and support each other as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much. Your panels are awesome. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, even if I'm breaking stories or if I'm not, I'm trying to just take what's going on and putting it through my mind and then giving it out to my audience or whoever. And I think that's just what we have to do moving forward, is to get people on board and get the public on board. So thanks, guys. And thank you, Grant, for everything you've done.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Beautiful.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Desta. She's here today too, recording it all for us. Thank you, Desta. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our third and final installment of Gossip and Rumors.
Thanks, guys.